So, welcome back. And today we're going to do basically kind of practice. We're going to do music theory practice today. I'm not going to forge ahead with any new material because I'd like for you to focus on, sentences and periods and analysis because that's all that's on your assignment. So, we're going to kind of do a bunch of examples today that are similar in kind of difficulty to what's on your assignment, and hopefully that will be super helpful for you. So I'll direct your attention to the Moodle site here, and there's a handout called Sentences and Periods Worksheet 2. So if you feel like grabbing that, you can do so, and that will allow you to follow along and zoom in and all that sort of stuff. If we don't get to every example on this sheet, you can certainly do some more for practice as well. And by all means, if you want me to check over your work or anything like that, you can do so. Just reach out to me, and I'll happily see how you're doing. I'm also going to, but probably not in this class, record just a quick demonstration of me doing the kind of more composition-oriented questions that are on your assignment. They're pretty simple as well, but I'll do a little demo of that. But in my morning class, I just didn't quite have time to go through that. So we'll see if we can get through enough today, and then maybe I'll do it live in class, and if not, I'll just do a quick demo like after class and put it up on YouTube or something like that, okay? I will just mention about that part of the question. I'm not going to be looking for, perfect, compositional brilliance. I'm really looking for sort of just a demonstration of your understanding of the form of the phrase structure of these two types. So that there's a question that gives you a basic idea and asks you to write a sentence, and then there's another question similar, gives you a basic idea and asks you to write a period. So focus mostly, I would recommend, on the melodic components of those. You don't have to write beautiful left-hand piano accompaniment. I mean, you should try. Try to follow, the pattern that's given in the basic idea. I give you the left hand. I give you the whole thing. So do your best with that. But I want, if you're stressed about it, think mostly about the kind of melodic structure, and hopefully that should be pretty clear. And like I said, I'll make a little video of me doing a similar question after class, probably this afternoon. Just I'll go through 20 minutes or so and post that up on YouTube if we don't have time to get through it today. So without further ado, let's go to our worksheet, which is starts here with this Beethoven string quartet example. And we're going to kind of do this thoroughly. We actually listened to this example already in an earlier class. I want to say it was either last class or the class before, but we did it just by ear. So I'm going to play this for you, and we're going to analyze this kind of thoroughly. So we'll want to start by listening for the kind of segmentation and listening for cadences, and we'll go from there. So let's give this a listen, and we'll sort of see where we're at. So here we go. One more time. You guys hear the music okay? Wonderful. Okay. So let's start with the kind of idea level analysis here. So how are we going to break this down? How do you sort of hear things happening at the subphrase level? Are we grouping in bars of 1, bars of 2, half bars? What do you think? Bars of 2, I see people flashing the peace sign on Zoom. I appreciate that. A good message always. So we've got 2 bars to start here. Do I go another 2 bars, do you think? Yeah. Okay, and then 2 more bars. And then 2 more bars. Yeah, these all kind of group together. I mean, it's not surprising. The kinds of examples we're starting with in this unit are pretty square 4-bar phrases, 2-bar units, that sort of thing. We will definitely, starting next week, start to see things that are not exactly clear cut as this. But you know, it's good to start with the easier ones, right? So we've got the 2-bar examples, or 2-bar ideas rather. What about cadences? Do we hear a couple of cadences in here? Maybe one cadence. Let's listen one more time and really focus on that. Okay, so what about cadences here? Well, there's definitely at least one, right? Where does that fall? At the end of the excerpt, exactly. Let's go with this one. Now, I won't let you off the hook entirely. What kind of cadence did you hear? Was it a complete sounding cadence or an incomplete sounding cadence? What do you think? Complete sounding, right? It sounded done, right? So we would know that that's going to be some kind of authentic cadence, and maybe you want to zoom in closely and tell me if it's a perfect or imperfect authentic cadence. What do you think? Go for it. It's perfect. You got it. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave you hanging there. Yeah, perfect authentic cadence. Clear enough. What about anywhere other than the end? Is there a cadence? You got it. What kind of cadence did you hear? It sure did. So yeah, kind of incomplete sounding. And if we kind of zoom in on that a little bit, woo. There we go. Come on, zoom. Why can't you zoom? There. If we zoom in on that a little bit, sorry, something was going a little weird with my iPad there. If we zoom in on that, we can see it's a dominant chord, right? There's a 5 there. Okay. So let's keep going now. So we've got the cadences, we've got the segmentation down. Let's think now about the formal function of each of these little segments. So do we have basic ideas? Do we have contrasting ideas? Do we have fragments? Do we have cadential functions? What do you think is going on here? So start with the beginning. Maybe this is patently obvious, but what do we have? How are we going to label the function of those first 2 bars? You can just type it in the chat or shout it out if you like. It would be basic idea. Very good. So I'll just call that BI. It's a little hard to read with the score tempo there underneath it, but I think you get the idea. Immediately following that, we've got 2 more bars. Would those be a repeat of that basic idea or something else? Contrasting idea, right? Oh, yeah. So I didn't actually hear who was talking there, or I didn't see who was talking there. But whoever said it was Paige or Sydney. I'm not sure. You're both right. It's the CI, right? Clearly different melodic, rhythmic profile. You know, a change, contrast. This is not really controversial at all. The next 2 measures, what is the formal function of those, do you think? What do we have? It's the repeat of the basic idea, right? This is not fooling us. It goes up the octave, but it's ultimately the same. And then I'll just finish us off here. CI. There we go. Okay, so we've got BI, CI, BI, CI, half cadence, and PAC. What is the formal function of the first 4 bars? Hannah, go ahead. You got it. Antecedent. And do you want to do the second half too? You got it. So the antecedent followed by the consequent, this is what we expect to happen in a period. Okay, so this is a period structure, antecedent followed by consequent. In kind of less technical terms, the antecedent sort of sounds like it's posing a question that is then responded to by the consequent, right? This is the sort of semantic feeling the syntactic feeling we get from listening to these two phrases together. Okay, they sound like they work together. Now let's get into the more nitty gritty details of the harmonic analysis here, and this will take a little bit longer, but it's really important to me in this class for you to be able to essentially do harmonic analysis without having your hands held. Okay, by hand holding I mean, you'll find in a lot of workbooks and stuff like that there's like, like blanks under the score, or even more than that, right? Perhaps you spent a lot of time in previous classes doing chorales and analyzing chorales, and I think we can probably all agree that that's much easier than doing, something like this, where the harmonic, the harmony isn't as clear perhaps on the surface. But the reality is, like, this is real music, and real music doesn't have blanks underneath it. When we get into doing popular music analysis, we're going to actually get comfortable with not even having a score. Okay, we're gonna get comfortable with listening and plunking notes on the piano and figuring things out that way. Okay, so this is not this is kind of where I want to go with things, and I know that it may be a little bit uncomfortable, but that's what I'm here for. I'm here to sort of help you through that. So the first thing I think is really important as a kind of plan of attack for doing harmonic analysis is to have just to listen to it and try to hear how fast the chords are changing. Okay, so let's listen again, and I want you to tell me how fast the chords are changing. If there's a part in the music where you can follow along and essentially draw your own blanks for the chord changes underneath. Okay, let's listen. Sorry, back to the beginning. Okay, so where is the first? How fast do the chords change? Every measure. Thank you, mystery voice. I think it might have been Carson. Every measure, yeah, more or less. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and actually just draw our blanks in. Right, we've got one there, we've got one there, we've got one there. We've got one there for sure. Moving along, maybe zooming in a little bit. How many chords in the next measure? I see we have 3 bass notes, but does the harmony speed up, or is it still 1 chord per measure? Do we think? Still 1 per measure. Great. Next chord, 1 chord, do you think? Yeah, okay. Now the next couple maybe is a little different, and this is something that we should come to expect, that harmony will speed up as we approach a cadence. Okay, so if you take a close look at the second last measure, or if you want to be fancy, the penultimate measure, we have 2 chords in this, right? Do you guys see where do the chords change in that measure? This may require you to actually kind of look at the notes a little bit. We could listen again and try to hear it. We have, I think, 1 chord here and 1 chord there. Yeah. And that will become, now this doesn't have to be perfect when we're doing this. It will become more clear when you actually like analyze the notes. And then the last measure is a little bit weird, but there's actually two kind of chords in there too. So let's get into the harmonic analysis now. So the first measure, what do we have? You can shout it out if you know it. 1, excellent, Carson. Jump on the easy one, but I won't let you off the hook so easily. Can you tell me the next measure? 6. Oh, look at that. Good work. And the next measure is someone else this time. What do we have? What do you have? We have a C in the cello part. We have C and A in the viola. We have E, C, and A in the second violin, and then we have a little sort of stepwise melodic idea in the next bit. What do we have? Yeah, I think I've got someone, a 4 chord. Was that Rosie? Yeah. Well, we've got a C and an E, but a 4 chord. This is in G major, right? What would we need in the 4? We've got a C and a G. Yeah, we don't have a G. We've got an A instead. So what is it? It's the cousin of the 4 chord. It's the 2, 6. So yeah, we've got. I mean, these 2 and 4 often appear in the same parts of a phrase, right? And so if it were a G instead of an A, we would have a 4 chord, but we've got a 2, 6 instead. And then last here we've got D, we've got D, C, A, F sharp, with this little G kind of lingering over, and A as well. So what do we have in that fourth measure where we've got our half cadence? What do we think? Five, 7, yeah. Now it's a little bit weird. I'm going to put a little exclamation point there. It's a little bit weird to have a half cadence on a 5-7 chord. We usually think of 5-7 as being kind of this too dissonant to be a point of rest kind of chord. But I think in this case, this is definitely a half cadence. We may come back to this when we talk about hybrid phrase structures and argue about this one a little bit. But for now, I think it's fine to call this an antecedent phrase that just ends on 5-7. Okay, moving on. The basic idea is quite similar to its first occurrence. It's up the octave. The cello is a little more active here, but I think it might be safe to say that the basic idea is harmonized the same way as it was before. And in fact, that's what we should be looking for, right? We know that the basic idea repeated should have some resemblance. Now, it's not always going to be the same harmony. We've seen lots of examples where it's like transposed or something like that, but we should at least start with looking for some similarity. So in this case, the harmony is the same. We've got 1 followed by 6. And then things get a little different, right? We said we had 2 chords here. Whoops, let's do this. What's going on in the second last measure, the penultimate measure, if you will? What do we think? So if we take a careful look, right, we said that there's probably 2 chords in here. Looking at the first beat, we've got C in the bass, we've got an E, we've got an A, and then this B. So it's A, C, E, and B. Which is the note that's the odd one out here, do we think? Which is the non-chord tone? The B is the non-chord tone. It's pretty clearly a passing tone, right, between the A and the C on the next beat. So it's A, C, E with C in the bass. What is that? 2 what? 2, 6. There you go. Yeah, 2, 6. And We could kind of make the case that the chord changes again on beat 2, but I don't think it does. I think this is going by too quickly to really hear that as 3 distinct chords there. So I'm going to say that we glom all of these together. Oops, that's not a very good glom. I'll use the highlighter. These are all part of the same chord, right? So we've got A, we've got C as the lowest note, A, we've got E and E, we've got A, B, and C. So the B, as you said, is a passing tone, and then the same in the first violin up the octave. This is 2, 6 for the extent of that. I'm gonna not bang my desk and shake my camera so much. And then the third beat in this measure, what do we have? This is no longer A, C, and E. You can tell because the bass changes to a D. What do we think is in that measure? 5/7, yes. Emphatically so. And then in the last measure, which is very strange, I see if I can get it on the screen. We have D, we've got C, we've got A, we've got F sharp. It's 5/7 again. It's strange that it's strange because it happens where we expect the one chord to happen, but the one chord kind of comes later at the end there. There we go. Got it all on the screen there. So so there we have our first analysis, and we've kind of gone through step by step how to really approach this sort of question. Okay. So how did that go? Is everybody feeling okay about that and the approach to this? Okay, let's do another example. I'm going to skip that one for a second. And we're going to do this K332 example. Okay. And this, I want to do this one just because it's a little bit trickier than the last one, I think, in some respects. So let's pull this up. Sorry. Here we go. This is Adagio. So this is a slow movement. Okay, and I'm going to stop it there. I probably should have cut out the last 2 bars in this. We're really focusing on the first 4. Let's listen one more time. And I want you to think about cadences and think about the basic segmentation of this phrase. Okay, so what about the basic segmentation of this phrase? Or perhaps the cadences? To pick either one where you want to start. I would actually say that's more like the accompaniment pattern that we've got going on here. I don't think that the grouping of 4/16 notes in that Alberti pattern kind of jumps out as unique enough to be emotive. Okay, but that's a good question. What about the cadences? Do you guys hear one cadence, 2 cadences, and if so, where? 2. Who said that? Carson. There you are. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Let's tell me where they are. There. Okay. Where I stopped it, which was right here. Fair enough. Okay. Wonderful. Now, what's the key that we're in? Can we tell if it's major or minor? Go ahead, Carson. B flat major. Okay, great. Um, what kind of cadence did you hear in the, say, the fourth measure there? What was it? Complete or incomplete kind of cadence? Incomplete sounding. So that's likely a half cadence, right? If we zoom in on that, we see that it's an F major chord. That's 5 in the key of B flat, right? So we can already write in our Roman numeral there, and we can say this is a half cadence. I'm really committed to using orange for cadences for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, let's go to the other spot where you marked a cadence. Now, what kind of cadential feeling did you get from that? Was it complete or incomplete? So, like, okay, yeah. So let's listen again, and I want you to think really carefully about what authentic cadences sound like and what half cadences sound like, and then you tell me what type it sounds like to you. And then we're going to go zoom in and really look at the chords, okay? So, do you remember now? It feels like imperfect authentic you felt? Okay. Okay. Well, you're not. I mean, yeah, kind of. um, it's okay. It is a. It is now. Did you? Because maybe you zoomed in and looked at that chord itself and saw that it's a 1/6 chord, right? Now remember, for our really compelling capital C cadences, compelling capital C cadences, 4 C's. We want those chords in root position, right? And for an authentic cadence, we actually need a 5 chord in root position followed by a 1 chord in root position, even if it's an imperfect authentic cadence, okay? So what we've got here, as you pointed out, is a 1/6 chord. Um, oops. A 1/6 chord here. So um, that's not in root position, and neither is the preceding chord. It doesn't really, it's not a 5 chord in root position either. So it's not, even though it definitely is a point of rest, and I think when we talk about the segmentation, we'll draw a boundary there. It's not a cadence because the harmony doesn't really comply with everything else that's going on. Okay, so I think it's just one cadence in this passage, which may be tipping you off then to the phrase structure, because we really only know 2 types, and only one of those 2 types has a single cadence in it. What is it? What's the phrase structure that we know with one cadence? Sentence. You got it. So that means we're looking for segmentation that follows a kind of basic idea, and then some kind of continuation that often uses fragmentation, but not every time. Okay, so let's go through the segmentation. How do we want to break this up? Remember that it's pretty slow too, so it may not be the kind of usual 2 bars. Go ahead, Carson. 1 bar at a time. I agree. 1 bar, and there's even a nice like literal rest in there. And then another bar. Okay. Well, what about what follows it? Same thing, or okay? So like all two, both the next two measures, you think? Okay, for sure that's a unit. Can we break up that unit even further though? I wonder if we could. Hannah, what do you think? I agree. That would be a really nice example of fragmentation, right? And we'll listen for it again. And then the remaining bar, I think, goes together. So Carson, your analysis was good. It was just the kind of level above where that segmentation was. Okay, so the thing that's tricky about this example is, of course, the tempo is really slow. So how the way that this sounds versus what it looks like on the page is kind of at odds with one another. Um, if you just closed your eyes and counted this and like tapped along, you might actually count the first bar as two bars, right? Listen to how slow it is. 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. You see what I'm saying? Like you could tap it kind of twice as fast as it's written. And then suddenly the basic idea thing of being like two bars still sort of works out, right? So the basic idea in this case is a single bar of notated music, but it still kind of feels like two bars of actual music, if that makes any sense. And I'm not sure how tricky it is, but perhaps, do you guys see what happens in the next segment? What would you call the next segment? What would you call the next segment? You got it. And that's what I really wanted to emphasize here. This is a repetition. It's just embellished a little bit. You can hear the fact that it's related based on especially that bum ba-da-dum, bum bum ba-da-dum, bum bum, right? This bit here really matches this bit here exactly. Now the first beat is not exactly the same. The harmony is different, right? There's lots of variation happening here, but I think we can still kind of hear it as a variation on what happened immediately before it. So I'm going to call this BI varied. Okay, and I think that's pretty compelling. Now we were also sort of looking for a sentence structure here because we heard one cadence, and so maybe that influences our decision a little bit. But I think it still works pretty well to call this a variation on the basic idea. Now what follows was very aptly pointed out by Hannah as fragmentation here. We've got two beats where it goes bum ba-da-dum bum bum bum, and then we have a little variation on that ba-da-dum ba-da-dum bum bum bum. But it's clearly like the same idea being sort of stepped down it's moved down by one step. So this is a fragmentation in sequence basically. So we have two fragments, and then we have cadential function, which I will group like so. Okay. Now at the sort of 4-bar level, or the 4 real bars, 2 notated bars level, we have the presentation. Whoops. Gotta zoom in a little bit here. And likewise, I'm going to make this orange. The continuation. Okay, and that continuation continues, into the last measure there, and then all together we could draw this a giant phrase arc that just kind of ends there and call this a sentence. Okay. Running out of room on the page there, but you get the idea. So is that so far so good with the analysis of this one? This is a little trickier again because of the slow tempo of it all, but I think it kind of fits pretty well into the sentence mold otherwise. Okay, now let's think about the harmonic rhythm now that we've done the kind of phrase structure analysis. We have a couple of the chords. And I want to come back to a point that Rosie made about the left-hand pattern. Especially in Mozart, but in a lot of high classical, just generally, this is a really common accompaniment pattern, right? The Alberti bass. And generally speaking, we know the Alberti bass to outline, a single harmony. Okay, so right off the bat, I would hope that we're not doing something silly like analyzing a chord on every single one of those, right? That would be pretty silly. Rather, we think of the whole group of 16th notes as a single harmony being spread out. Low, high, middle, high, low, high, middle, high, right? Now let's listen one more time, and I want you to you should be able to hear where the harmonies change. The slow tempo helps, I think, with this. So, how fast is the harmony going by here? Or maybe just tell me where to draw the blanks. Okay, we'll start in this measure. So where do the chords change here? I'll use a black pen for this. So where does the first chord change? Third beat, yep. So first two beats, and then how many for the next chord? Two more beats, yep. And then here, things change a little bit, right? What do we have going on in the second measure? So we're really using the Alberti pattern to guide our analysis here. What do you think? So here we've got E flat, G, and B flat. And then here we've got E flat, G, and B flat again. You're right, it's the same chord, not changing the octave, but changing the inversion, right? So technically, we could put kind of two blanks there, but you're right that this is the same chord. We could almost get away with a single blank, I think. And likewise, what about the end of the last two beats of this basic idea? Also a single chord, right? So, and this is kind of typical for presentation subphrases, right? The beginning of a sentence, slower harmonic rhythm, lots of tonic expansion, that kind of stuff. So now that we've got those kind of harmony or where the changes are outlined, let's actually analyze the chords. So what do we have in our first blank, do you think? 1. Yes, not surprising at all. I'm going to get rid of, not all of that. Well, I'll just maybe obnoxiously zoom in for now. 1, okay. What about the second half of that measure, the last two beats? We've got E, F, C, A, F, A, C, and E natural. What do we think it is? Is that E natural part of the chord? Is it? The chord would normally be F, A, C, E flat, right? If we add the E natural, that's not really a chord that makes a ton of sense in this key. So it would be 5/6. Yeah, let's actually maybe pause for a moment and talk about why this isn't 5/6/5. Okay, 5/6/5 in the key of B flat, which we didn't write, but we should, would be F, A, C, E flat with A in the bass, right? If we add the E, it becomes a major seventh chord, and that doesn't really function as a dominant in any respect. And I think we can account for this E flat as a passing tone between the E flat in the previous beat and, or even risk, like these are both passing tones between the D, which is stable, and the F, which is stable. Okay, let's keep going. On the next two beats, we have a change of inversion, but what's the chord? What's the chord here? We've got E flat, G, and B flat in the key of B flat major. What is it? I can see the gears turning. Lauren, do you want to try? You're close. The thing that you're getting hung up on here is that the G is in the bass, but don't worry about where the G is, okay? Just gather up all the pitch classes. So we've got E flat, G, and B flat. What's the root of the chord if we have E flat, G, and B flat together? What one's the root? G's the bass note here. Don't even worry about what's on the page. E flat, G, and B flat, right? If you were to kind of rearrange those on a staff, let's do it real quick here, right? How do we get it in root position? So if we have B flat, E flat, and G flat, or if we have E flat, G, B flat, or if we have G, B flat, E flat, which one of those is in root position? This one, right? Because it's the most closely stacked chord, right? So E flat is the root. Okay, so that means that, oops, I deleted my bracket there. So if E flat is the root and we're in the key of B flat, that means it's a 4 chord. Okay, so this is 4. Now G is in the bass, so it's 4 in first inversion, which would be 4/6. Okay, and that switches just to 4. We can just write 5/3 there to indicate that it's switched into root position before going to 1. So the whole presentation subphrase doesn't really follow a harmonic pattern that would indicate a cadence at all. So this is kind of confirming what we suspected earlier when we talked about the segmentation here. The next couple of beats, we've got more of these little Alberti patterns, and we can use them to kind of group our analysis. And we can sort of look at this like we've got a blank under each little group of 16th notes, and we may tie these blanks together if we realize that the chords are the same. So in this measure, we've got E flat, G, and this B natural, goodness. And then in the next measure, we've got E flat, C, and G sort of as well. So what do we think? Is this 2 chords together or 1? It's 1 chord. So Hannah, if it's 1 chord, we've got C, E flat, G, and B natural. Which one of those notes doesn't fit? You got it. B natural is sort of a lower neighbor or lower passing tone to, into the C here. Okay, so 100% correct. This is really just a single blank, and we can safely call this then C, E flat, and G with E flat in the bass. So what chord would that be in the key of B flat major? 2, 6. Yeah. Okay. And then we're going to D flat, or excuse me, D, F, and A with this E, which I think is a embellishment, and this G, which is an embellishment. So D, F, and A, that would be a 3 chord. It's a little weird. Or perhaps we want to maybe analyze this like we did the previous beat, where we're glomming these 2 beats together. And this is not a 3 chord, but in fact a 1/6 chord. I went through that kind of quickly, so I want to just explain myself a little bit. So the way that we analyze this 2/6 chord, we figured out that this note here in the grouping was a passing tone, right? So if you notice, like these fragments are transpositions of one another, right? More or less. So if that's the case, then we probably want to analyze that part of the beat in the same way that we did in the previous fragment, right? It's the same thing, just transposed. So we probably want to have, the analysis of the embellishments to be similar. So in that case, I'm leaving the A out, and I'm calling this note here, as it was here, a chord tone. Okay, and that would make it 1/6. Hopefully that's clear enough. If it's not clear, after class, take a few minutes and just kind of scrutinize that measure, and I think it will make sense to you. Now, speeding up to the cadence, we've got faster harmonic rhythm here, and I'm just going to go ahead and sort of show you, based on what we've done, the answer. So we know that these little Alberti patterns are typically a single chord. So here we have A, F, and C, and then we've got an E flat. That's pretty clearly just a 5/6/5 chord. Okay, and then in the next beat we've got B flat, D, and F. Well, we know that's just a 1 chord. Okay, simple enough. And then on the next beat here we've got F, B flat, and D. That looks like a 1 chord as well, but it's a 1 chord with the 5th in the bass, and it's going into a 5 chord. So what is it? It's a trick, right? Go ahead, Carson. You got it. Cadential 6/4. So I'm actually going to eliminate the 5 that I made there and start it over here, because we know that those two things are kind of part of the same chord. Okay? So there we have it. That took a little longer than I thought it would, but I thought it was kind of a good idea to really go through this in detail, because you're going to have to do this for your assignment as well. Okay? And now you've got kind of a plan for doing so. So the first step, listen. Okay, before that, obviously the biggest, most important thing here is listening, right? Listening over and over and over and over again. Okay? If you have a little keyboard at home or an app, with a keyboard on it, or heck, you can open up MuseScore. There's a little keyboard in there. Use that to work out, the analysis if you need it. Okay, don't just try to do it in your head. Don't guess. My daughter does this all the time. She's 7 and she's learning how to read, and it's very, very clear when she sees a word and she's got the first 2 letters, and then she just guesses what the rest of it is. She's like, this is she'll look at the word sentence and she'll be like, spaghetti, and then she'll just move on to the next one, because she doesn't actually look at the rest of it. So I find that it's sort of similar in music analysis too. A lot of times we see the bass note and we're just like, oh, it's it's whatever, it's the 7 chord or something like that, but we haven't actually looked at the rest of it. So maybe just take a good second and think about all the notes in the chord. Anything that doesn't fit, ask yourself, is it a passing tone or a neighboring tone or a suspension? But anyways, I got off track. So listening is really, really important. The first step you'll do after maybe your first listen is try to identify the segmentation, right? So you're not even putting labels on things out. You're just kind of chunking things in the way that we talked about, where you're thinking about how you might practice the piece, let's say. And you think about cadences, okay? Do the cadences sound complete or incomplete? And we know those to mean, if it's complete, it's an authentic type cadence. If it's incomplete, it's a half type cadence, okay? Then go through more, 1 more time, 2 more times, listening to it again. Try to identify the formal functions, so the BIs and CI labels, the fragment labels, and then the higher up, the phrase arcs and so on. Those should correspond with your cadences. Even then, you're still not counting notes yet. You're not going through, but you're going to listen again and then find the harmonic rhythm. Really think about where the chords are changing. Draw little lines under the staff if you have to. And then finally go back through and follow your musical intuition about the harmonic rhythm. Okay? And that should be a good process, I think, for doing this. Okay? So good luck with that. And if you have any difficulties, I'm available. Just send an email and we can Zoom or something like that. I will put up a little demonstration of the kind of more composition end of things But I think if you have a really good understanding of sentence and period, it should be pretty simple. Okay? So thank you all and have a great weekend, and I'll see you Monday.